Welcome to a story about the armor we build and the unexpected solace we discover when we finally let it fall. Before we begin, we'd like to acknowledge our partner in providing a foundation of security, ABDLcomforts.com. For those who know that real resilience can begin with allowing yourself to be vulnerable, find your solace there. Now, let's begin. Leo's life was a fortress of control. At 34, he was the youngest partner at his architecture firm, a man who built his reputation on immaculate plans and unshakable composure. His world was one of crisp lines, polished surfaces, and absolute predictability. Every interaction was measured, every emotion meticulously curated. He had built an impenetrable adult life, brick by logical brick, to wall away the chaotic, sensitive boy he'd once been, the boy who felt everything too deeply. His anchors were his college roommates, the three people who had seen the cracks in the facade and stayed. There was Ben, steady and insightful, whose quiet presence was a balm. Mateo, all boundless energy and fierce loyalty, who charged through life like a force of nature. And Sam, the pragmatic caretaker, who always had the right tool or the perfect takeout order. They were his sanctuary. Yet, even with them, Leo maintained a careful distance, a charming but definite wall. Their annual guys trip, this year to a sprawling music festival in the desert, filled Leo with a quiet, vibrating dread. It was a temple to everything he had organized out of his existence: overwhelming crowds, sensory chaos, and a complete lack of structure, the very antithesis of control. The assault on his composure began immediately. The press of bodies was a physical shock. The layered cacophony of competing stages was a spike in his brain. He navigated it with a tight smile, clinging to the schedule on his phone like a lifeline. But the universe, it seemed, was determined to test his foundations. A spilled drink on his pristine linen shirt felt like a violation. A stranger's overwhelming perfume in a crowd triggered a wave of nausea. He could see the concern in his friend's glances, the unspoken question in Ben's eyes, the way Mateo subtly tried to clear a path for him. Their care was a shield, but the noise was inside him now, a rising, screaming static. The breaking point was a logistical trap. After hydrating relentlessly in the relentless heat, the bank of portable restrooms near the main stage was a horrifying spectacle, a tangled, roaring mob. His body's demand was urgent, a piercing alarm. His friends, swept up in the momentum of the crowd, were being pulled toward the front for a set they'd all been waiting for. "Just hold on," he muttered, clenching his fists, muscles taut. But the mind can only command the body so far. The first warm trickle was a horrifying betrayal. Then came the flood, a hot, rushing wave of absolute system failure. He stood paralyzed, the thunderous music morphing into a mockery as a dark stain spread with brutal clarity down the light fabric of his trousers. A firm hand gripped his arm. "Hey man, you okay?" It was a festival staffer, clad in a safety vest, his face etched with practical concern. Leo's stammered explanation, "It was an accident, I just," was lost under another seismic bass drop. The staffer nodded, speaking close to his ear. "It's cool. We have a place. Let's get you sorted." Protest was pointless. He was guided, not to a medical tent, but to a discreet, air-conditioned trailer at the edge of the grounds, the festival's quiet support station. Inside, it was a hushed oasis. The screaming guitars were a distant murmur. A staff member named Gwen, with calm eyes and a direct manner, took charge. His ruined clothes were gathered. What followed was a surreal dissociation. In a clean, partitioned area, Gwen spoke softly. "Let's handle this." The words were simple, devoid of judgment, yet leaving no room for debate. There were cool wipes, a surprising sense of thoroughness, and then the reveal of the product itself. Not a flimsy makeshift solution, but a thick, high-absorbency brief. The soft rustle as it was unfolded was deafening in the quiet. Gwen helped him onto a cot, lifted his legs with efficient ease, and settled the immensely soft padding beneath him. The tapes fastened with a soft, definitive crinkle. The sensation was a profound paradox. It was an admission of catastrophe, and yet it was containment. The crisis had a boundary. Then Gwen offered clean clothes, soft, gray cotton drawstring pants, and an oversized, incredibly soft hoodie. "For the shock," she said simply, pressing a clean, adult-sized silicone teether into his trembling hand. Numb, floating in a haze of shattered dignity and surreal relief, he placed it in his mouth. The rhythmic pressure short-circuited the panic. A bottle of cold water appeared. He drank slowly. Gwen rested a hand on his shoulder. "Just breathe. You're okay." In a secluded, dim corner of the trailer with a reclining chair, Leo was encouraged to rest. A weighted blanket was draped over him. The sheer physical and emotional exhaustion pulled him under into a heavy, blank sleep. He awoke to whispered voices. "We never should have pushed into that crowd. Look at him. He's finally not a clenched fist. Do you think he'll ever forgive us?" Blinking, Leo focused on 3 familiar faces looking down at him. Then, etched with guilt, Mateo, uncharacteristically somber, and Sam, already analyzing the situation with quiet focus. Reality rushed back, hot and sharp. He tried to sit up, the crinkle beneath him a glaring announcement. The teether fell into his lap. "Don't," he croaked. The drive back to their rented cabin was silent, thick with unspoken words. Leo, wrapped in the hoodie, stared out at the stark desert night. The shame was a lead weight, but beneath it, inexplicably, was a thread of something else, a terrible, guilty peace. The exhausting, constant work of holding himself perfectly together had ceased. He felt, despite the humiliation, profoundly managed. That night, in the cabin's living room, the silence became a tangible thing. Leo had showered, but returned wearing the soft pants and hoodie. His usual tailored clothes felt like a prison sentence. The bag of supplies Gwen had quietly sent with them sat by the door, a monumental question mark. It was Sam who finally spoke, sitting beside him. "Leo," he said low, "what do you need? Not for our comfort, for yours. What would actually make tomorrow bearable?" Leo's voice was raw. "I'm scared. The thought of being trapped in a crowd again, the noise, it's not just the accident, it's the unraveling. I can't." He swallowed hard. "And today, after it was done, the unraveling stopped. I just felt quiet." Mateo, uncharacteristically gentle, said, "Then we help you stay quiet." So they forged a new, delicate agreement. It was explicit, consensual, and born from a love that had finally seen the rawest truth. The next morning, Sam, with his methodical care, led a tense Leo to the bedroom. A towel was laid on the bed. The brief was opened. There was no infantilizing, only clear procedure. "Is this okay?" Sam asked at each step. Leo, his jaw tight but his resolve clear, nodded. The dressing was clinical yet deeply intimate. The fresh brief was secured, the soft pants pulled over it. It was a functional measure, but its effect was transformative armor. The second day at the festival was a different world. Freed from the visceral fear of public loss of control, Leo experienced a paradoxical opening. He wasn't Leo the unflappable partner, nor Leo the broken man. He was just Leo, with his friends. When the sensory overload threatened, he didn't have to fake a smile. He could put in his noise-canceling earbuds and let Mateo lead. He accepted a bottle of water from Ben without feeling weak. He let Sam guide him by the elbow through a thicket of people, and the touch felt anchoring, not condescending. The climax came during the headliner's set. The crowd was a pulsating organism, the base a physical force. Leo felt the familiar, dizzying rise of panic, the world beginning to fray at the edges. Without a word, Ben moved behind him, placing solid hands on his shoulders, a grounded weight. Mateo, on his left, met his eyes and handed him the familiar teether. Sam, on his right, began tracing slow, deliberate circles on his back. There, in the epicenter of the roaring crowd, under a canopy of laser light, Leo let go. He placed the teether in his mouth, leaned into the solid presence at his back, and simply let the waves of sound pass him through. The tears that came were not of shame, but of surrender. He was overwhelmed. He was protected. And in that supported yielding, he was more himself than he had ever been. The trip ended, but the transformation was permanent. Leo didn't become someone else. He still built skyscrapers and commanded boardrooms, but he now carried a secret truth, that within the sacred, trusted space of chosen family, there is an immense power in admitting you cannot always hold the line. He learned that being cared for is not a failure of strength, but a reorganization of it. And his friends learned that love isn't just about standing shoulder to shoulder in battle. Sometimes it's about building a quiet room inside the storm where your person can finally, safely fall apart. This is a story about the structures we design, not on paper, but in our hearts, and how the strongest foundation is sometimes built not on steel, but on the soft, brave trust between people. If this narrative of finding peace through vulnerability and the strength of chosen bonds resonates with you, remember that your path to security is valid. For those seeking products that honor that journey and provide a cornerstone of comfort, discover your support at abdlcomforts.com. Your story of resilience deserves its proper foundation. Thank you for listening.